Good evening and welcome to the March 11th, 2024 City Council Roundtable meeting. I am Mayor Ross and tonight's meeting is brought to you live using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. And tonight's recording will be posted on the city's YouTube channel. Welcome to everyone and thank you for joining us. City Clerk Dean, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Benson.
Here.
Councilmember Watton.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway. Councilmember Washington.
Here.
Councilmember Cotton. Here. Councilmember Christensen. Here. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Ross.
I am here and Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Holloway is requested to be excused from tonight's roundtable and also council meeting. So may I have a motion to excuse him?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Christensen, second by Councilor Johnson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So Mayor Pro Tem Holloway is excused from roundtable and also the council meeting. We now move to our first item of business, which is to approve the agenda. And so the agenda will be the two items that are on the roundtable agenda regarding the comprehensive plan. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Member Christensen, second by Councilor Johnson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And the council agenda passes and we will invite our Community Development Director, Emily Artecha, to introduce the comprehensive plan transportation portion. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, council members. I'd like to do just a brief overview of our agenda item for today. Comprehensive plan review of transportation and capital facilities and utilities. We have been grouping these together, but haven't made it through two at one time. So we most likely will just reconvene with where we left off at the next meeting. Hopefully that's the capital facilities and utilities. So we'll go over the schedule and I'll do a brief overview of the schedule and the process. I'll give you a brief summary of the policies at hand, and then we'll just convene into a review and discussion like we've been doing before. You've seen this chart before, just a nice little breakdown about how we get input into these draft goals and policies. You are down here. I've added a few extra dates for your future anticipation in April. We do have technical analysis going in, agency review, and then, at the end, we'll spit out a final comprehensive plan for adoption. Tonight, we are at the transportation element, circled it here, roundtable on the 11th. We'll keep moving forward with other items. They'll likely be pushed out a little bit for future roundtable meetings. And we'll end up with an adoption down here and City Council public hearing process as well. Here is a brief overview of the transportation element. It's a summary of some of the highlights. As you can see, we've got safe and efficient transportation systems. Would you mind collapsing that box? Thank you. Equitable and accessible systems and air quality. Each one of these items has a series of policies related to it. It's just kind of one fun area down here at the bottom right-hand corner is this e-bikes and e-scooters, which is kind of a new evolving technology. Now, for capital facilities, you've got quality infrastructure, financial stability, and coordination and continued public services. Just fun facts on here, you can see that there's a lot of emphasis on having accessibility of urban services, levels of service, functioning at peak, vehicle timeframes, and complete streets. The next steps, we'll just dive right in and continue the same format that we've been using for the last two roundtables.
Can you go back to the transportation one again?
Sure.
Please? Thank you.
Let's see if I can use that the right one.
There you go.
Is that okay? Oops.
How does she get that? Just in the slideshow? Where's the presentation mode?
Presentation mode?
Yeah, so you only see that.
Current slide.
Nope.
Current
yeah.
slide.
Current slide right there.
There you
go.
There we go. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Perfect.
So these are different areas that we are then covering this evening, right?
These are the areas that we're covering this evening. They're just highly summarized and it is an overview.
Might be helpful to keep that up there.
Oh, sure. It's just that I won't be able to look at my other screen
Oh, okay,
when I
Never
do
mind.
that.
That'd be helpful.
That's perfect. Okay, I will send it to you.
So the document that we're going to be discussing then is on page 7 of your packet.
Page 7 out of 309.
Yes, that one.
But Dean did mention it's going to be a long evening.
Yeah, I'll share my screen in just a second.
Is that why there's people?
So is Councilmember Johnson.
This is where she is. This is where we're gonna be looking, this part of it. Okay.
Did you want to lead off then
Yes,
on that?
I'm just getting to the right page.
Didn't we go through some of these? We already went through some of these, didn't we?
It's 4 minutes. See,
All right.
it's like deja vu.
Right there.
Okay. Okay, to start off with goal number 1. Provide for a safe and efficient transportation system for vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle, and transit travel within the city that supports the city's planned land use pattern. A, plan and preserve transportation system routes and capacity to support planned growth based on projected travel demands. B, ensure that street infrastructure projects are designed to harmonize with and enhance the distinctive character and visual identity of each city area. C, ensure transportation improvements or strategies address development impacts in a manner concurrent with the city's adopted levels of service standards as required by the GMA. D, connect streets, sidewalks, trails, bicycle facilities, and transit routes and facilities to neighborhoods, shopping and services, schools, transit, park and trails whenever feasible, with existing right of ways to form an integrated, balanced, and convenient multimodal system. E, maintain a transportation capital improvement plan that balances and coordinates system improvements for all modes and supports economic development.
Counselor Johnson?
On that one, the other large thing that I think is important with regard to transportation capital improvement plan is also something along the lines of change the verbiage, but planning for projected growth. And by growth, I mean population, additional housing, their needs of access.
Right. I'm looking to see if it's anywhere else, though.
Well,
Yeah.
specifically, this is about the capital improvement plan,
Yeah.
which is a different thing from this. But this is calling out that when we do capital improvement plans, these are things we should factor in. And I think that the fact that our population is going to grow, we should plan for that as well as part of our capital improvement plan. That's one.
It's like our population growth or even area population growth as well. Yeah. Counselor Christensen? Oh. No. Counselor Watton?
I'm just thinking, okay, we have 4,500 homes now, and we've set our 20-year target at 700. Our population growth would be about 2,100, 2,200 in what we have. So it's a matter of 14,000 to possibly 16,500. So will that cause that much increase in traffic, pedestrians, whatever it might be, whatever mode?
Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, one specific spot that is coming to mind is the one that is in our development agreement, if I'm using the right word, with the mill site with regard to one of our intersections. Is it Fisher, I think? That our traffic projections said that we may need to increase the level of service there. So that's just an example.
So Counselor Cotton had her hand up earlier. Did you?
I did,
Oh,
no, sorry.
Okay. Counselor Christensen?
So I had, I guess going back to that, I thought that we wouldn't need to do that until there was further development past Fisher, but correct me if I'm wrong, because that may be incorrect.
You
then-
only want them to hear. You just
Oh, I'm
want
so
them to
sorry.
hear. You don't care.
I'm sorry. And then the other question that I had, and it kind of ties in with Councilmember Johnson's point in question, as well as the PSRC letter that I saw that was cited in the packet as well, that referred to them looking forward a draft of the complete transportation element with the required inventories, land use assumption, travel demand analysis, financing plan. I wasn't sure, do we have the full transportation plan done? Is that in the process so that we have an idea of what we will need for transportation going forward?
Yeah, just two comments. So GMA does require that we consider our land uses, which are tied to our growth targets for housing and for employment. So, and the second thing is we will be planning to the year 2044 at this point. And that does include the 719 that we're anticipating. That's what this plan will demonstrate compliance with, and it will be demonstrated compliance with those technical studies and reports that are underway right now.
Okay, so they're underway right now.
Yes, so that was just a standard comment that they make because we didn't provide that level of detail at this time. We just provided a cursory review of draft goals and policies.
Okay. Do we know about when we'll have the additional studies?
Soon. I don't have an exact date, but yeah, I'll know more and be able to report back to the council of when the rest of those technical appendices will be available.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all part of the comp plan process. Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. So did we make any further adjustments to 1E?
So somewhere do we want to slide in plan for area population growth? Is
That's
that
right.
what?
I think it would be helpful to include.
Okay.
Whether or not that ends up being a large number.
F, encourage multiple connections between new development and historic parts of the city when feasible. G, monitor and prepare for changes in transportation technologies and mobility patterns. H, increase the resilience of the city's transportation system and support strategies for security and emergency management responses.
Councilor Watton.
My one takeaway from all this is I am a casual bike rider. I'm not a serious bike rider. However, if we can just in our 20-year vision, figure out how to make it more mobile through the downtown, I find it almost terrifying as the casual bike user. And I'm thinking how much more we could bring in tourism if we had a more robust bike route through the downtown, be it on 202, alongside 202, or side streets, and just figuring out how can we make it more user-friendly. That's in 20 years, maybe we could figure that out.
Councilor Cotton.
You know, we do have a bike path through the downtown. It goes over onto Maple. So it parallels Railroad, but it's marked as a bike route. Get to know your city. Councilmember.
Maybe I should ride with my glasses. Thank you.
But it's all striped out in the, over on Maple Avenue. So
It
it's
is possible to ride too casually.
Councilor Washington.
Well, to that point, I would say, what can we do to make it more obvious that so
Yeah.
people know to that point? So,
Cause we do have signage, you know, that says bike route, you know, and type of thing. So it goes off of, Fur, right down by the log pavilion, and then down, take a left on Maple. And all it does is just bypass, so you're not riding like down the boardwalk or in the traffic down.
well, I guess I would say to that point, yeah, what can we do just
more
from a
signage.
visibility standpoint is something that we can put on the city website, or how can we make it more visible to the people?
Lean in.
Oh, sorry. Think my voice carries. It's very white voice here. But yeah, that would be my only
But-
point, that yeah, just from a visibility standpoint, what, some things that we can do to make it more visible to the public.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, a couple of things related to that is, I don't know if it's actually like striped out with a bike lane that's, painted green or red or whatever the different colors are supposed to be, for a bike path. I don't know if we have any of those in the city. Yeah, I didn't think so. So that's one thing to consider. Also, if there's space, having it so that the cars are on the street side and the bikes go along the side of the sidewalk, so that we're using the cars to protect the bicyclists rather than the bicyclists to protect the cars. But also, I was wondering about along Snoqualmie Parkway, how we do have that nice path. Now, I've asked this before, and I know that I've forgotten already, but I think that bicycles are allowed on that path.
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
I don't know if they're allowed, but they go.
But they go there.
Yeah.
What a lot of cities do on those kinds of paths, and you'll see this at Green Lake, in a lot of cities up in British Columbia, will do this. They'll have a stripe down the middle, and then every, I don't know, 100 feet to few hundred feet, something like that, they'll have a little painting on the ground that says, or that it has a picture of a bicycle on the other side a couple of feet to kind of just say, hey,
Don't hit.
if you're over
Yeah.
here, just know there could be bicycles, and the bicycles ideally remember to try to stay on their side as best as they can. So that could be something to consider.
Did you have a comment?
I do. I strongly encourage us not to paint the big green areas in the bike lanes. It's a massive cost, a massive maintenance. I mean, you're looking at probably hiring 2 full-time people to do that full-time
Wow.
throughout town. Avoid that at all costs.
American to follow up on that.
Okay, follow up and then.
Just wondering if it was just, for like a 2 or 3 blocks downtown, would that still be the issue? Or is it a bigger issue just if we did it like everywhere, like all the way over the parkway?
There are multiple issues with putting paint on pavement. One is traction. It makes it more slippery. So if you have large amounts of paint and crosswalks, etc., it's more dangerous for people to go. But yes, the maintenance issue, every 3 months you'll have to touch it up and repaint it because of the car traffic and bikes and weather, especially the weather up here. It will not last. They do have delineators that you can put at the start with that are green, which last way longer than paint on pavement.
You could also do the strip of curb.
Yeah.
Perhaps that would set it off as well.
Paint
Anyway, just
is
something
a
to think about.
huge
It sounds like a nice implementation type of project that we could put into maybe near term or, if we're going to be doing near, mid and long term projects, this would be one of them. It also sounds like it might dovetail nicely with the integration of the public works standards.
Counselor Benson?
Yeah, a lot of the things that people are talking about, I think, fall under the signage issue. We've talked a lot about improving our signage around the city, and I think that this could be included. I know Mr. Hamlin is working on that. Who's the guy that's helping you with signs? Miss Hind? Well, you were saying that there was somebody who's like really passionate about signage in the city and signage for trails, and it came up in the Parks and Events Commission.
Brendan?
But a lot of these things seem like they could be really ameliorated with good signage that points people to where they want to go. Also, to City Administrator Chambliss's point, you don't have to repaint signs all the time. They're easier to maintain than than pavement paint.
That's a good point.
Okay. So somewhere we'll add in there about bikes.
I think we were gonna,
But my question, sorry, I should throw that in, was, do we need to add something about signage? Would that be appropriate in this document to add a note about improved signage to guide people to transportation services and options?
Thought I saw it somewhere.
Maybe it's under another number. I don't know.
It's like 2D, that's more freight.
I just know we have a lot more letters that we can leverage.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we took note of signage as well. So is this process working for you? For having her read it, or you just want to read the title and you can pick which ones you want to talk about? Yes? Read that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Counselor Watton.
Can we go through, read the title for each numerator and then the letter, just the letter, if there's any question on that letter, that if there's none, then we just move on to the next letter.
Okay, does that work for everyone? All right, Okay,
Right, ensure regional coordination and consistency with state, PSRC, King County, adjacent jurisdictions, transportation plans. A,
Counselor Watton,
Could we just modify that and drop the word transfer? And just have it assumed that it is a discussion point of the council? An ongoing discussion point?
drop the word transfer.
Mhm.
Which one?
Management, coordinate the management of the parkway with WashDOT, which may
2A.
include whatever we decide.
because we still have a application out there that's going to be addressed probably late next year.
And that's one of
Part of it.
those ways of managing that relationship.
So we have Counselor Benson and then.
Yeah, I like having the word transfer in there.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the day when that's transferred to the state and they can manage it. Sure, they'll do a bang up job.
Counselor Washington and then Counselor Christensen.
Yeah, just I like having that word in there because that was the original intent. I guess my question would be to Councilmember Watton, what's your hesitation with the word transfer?
It's,
Counselor Watton.
I'm sorry. Just the lack of control over it. I have this control issue.
Mhm.
So now everybody knows.
We knew.
Counselor Christensen.
I would be hesitant to remove the word transfer in this context without additional conversations, probably a depth on the removal of that and the possible shift that would be understood by removing that word. So I would not feel comfortable taking it out at this point, even if there are concerns about ultimately how the control and disposition would be. I think it would signify a really big shift, and I think that to the extent that we have residents that are looking at that, I think that it would raise a lot of questions. And I just wouldn't want to do it without a deeper conversation.
Counselor Washington.
Yeah, my suggestion would be, I'll meet you halfway. How about transfer and management of the Snoqualmie Parkway?
Transfer.
Counselor Watton.
If you transfer it, you may not have the management you think you have. That's all I'll say.
That's what I'm hoping.
So at this point, we'll just keep it as is then.
Okay. B, C,
Counselor Johnson.
Yeah, since we specifically called out Snoqualmie Parkway here, is there any reason not to specifically call out Highway 18? I don't know. I don't think it appears anywhere else in here, but I think that's the spot for it. Whereas local entities generate outside Snoqualmie can impact state levels of service, and something like, finishing Highway 18.
which one are you on?
2B.
City
I
Administrator.
would encourage you not to forget about 202.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Mhm.
Right. There's a lot of traffic that actually comes from 203 to 202 because they're trying to skirt past 405
Mhm.
to the parkway.
I know the feeling.
So we're gonna
Has
add
been-
202 and
And 18.
18.
Mhm.
Counselor Benson.
Yeah, it seems like 202 becomes a real issue if there's something going on 90
Mhm.
that messes things up.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
we become the de facto 90
Mhm.
right through downtown, if there's a big problem up there.
Counselor Washington.
Yeah, and to that point, whenever they're doing the construction or the renovations on I-90 over spring and summer, we do default to the I-90, the 202 default to the I-90. And that's going to be continuous from what I understand.
Counselor Benson.
Is there any kind of recognition of that from the state when we get impacted by those sorts of things, or is it just part of being part of the system?
And City Administrator. Chambers.
As far as I know, there's no special acknowledgement or anything. It's just being part of an connected world.
Councillor Cotton.
I know that, with speaking with like, especially the merchants, that they, like for the Highway 18, when they're shutting that down and people's employees are getting stuck in that, they actually do get, updates from WashDOT, from the contractor about what's going to be happening. We've been able to get into that loop of being notified. So like, because they'll notify like the fire department, but then they don't notify, that doesn't hit like the Chamber of Commerce or, the powers that be. So that is now in effect that for at least the 18, when they're shutting things down, and there's going to be delays of employees into the city, that the people that want to be on the call list or the email list get notified.
So do we need to list the highways or is it more just, it's all regional? Councillor Johnson?
I like to call it out personally. I think that it's really important that everyone knows that 18 is very important to us. And 202.
And on 90, right? It's all from there.
The
Um,
I-90 is generally okay.
Should we put I-90 down too?
Well, Councillor Washington.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with Councilmember Johnson that it's a regional impact. So yeah, to call it all 18, especially with the ongoing construction, that they're gonna shut down more of it. And, the spring and summer, we're looking at ongoing construction for I-90, to call it all 3.
Right.
Makes sense to me.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, never mind. I'll ask a question later.
All right, ready? C. B. And we'll move on to 3. Promote an equitable and accessible transportation system through services, facilities, and improvements. A.
Johnson?
What's level of service D and level of service E?
Would you like to come up, Mr. City Engineer? This is his expertise.
Okay, world of traffic. I'm not an expert on traffic, but I do have I guess a modest understanding of how this works. So the levels of service, A through E, actually F is fail, right? So when we talk about levels of service, this is something that is established in what's called the Highway Capacity Manual. It's a federal document, which kind of is basically the standards for design of highways. And one of the things that they do establish in there is levels of service of a roadway. So A would be wide open, F would be fail, and everything in between is somewhere in between. So E is the point where you're kind of that stop and go traffic where it's just, barely moving, and A would be wide open. So typically they establish standards for applying different remedies to traffic situations based on the levels of service. So as areas grow and traffic volumes build, so do the traffic snarls associated with all that traffic volume. So they can apply this standard when levels of service routinely hit level D for a certain percentage of a period of a day. That's when you apply different standards to it as far as remedies. So that's why, and that's how they're using it here.
Councillor Benson?
Where is it in our town where we hit E with any kind of regularity?
So we have that happen on rare occasions at some intersections. So, you can imagine like days when the school lets out. We'll have high volumes, high volumes of traffic on 202.
Right.
And, they'll stack up at the intersection.
So does a level E, does it include things like the impossibility of making a left-hand turn
Yeah,
on. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, that's right. That's where you would call that, this is level E because, I don't remember the exact, how to apply the standard to determine level E, but it's spelled out pretty well in highway capacity manual. But yeah, you can say, all right, we're at level E, but it only lasts for 5 minutes. So,
Right.
does that trigger the standard? Yeah.
Counselor Johnson?
And with that, my only concern is, what is the intent of the document? Who are the intended people to be reading and interpreting this? And it's some tech, exactly, rocket science right there. Yes, level of technical language. Is that something that is normally,
Required.
is it required?
Yes.
Okay, well, if it's required, then there you go.
Yeah, it's in your packet material is one of the identified items in GMA that this plan has to identify that or it will not be compliant.
Right. Thank you.
B. C.
So I would say B is where you see the cyclists, right? So we were addressing that earlier. To be your lanes. Unnecessary signage. Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, so maybe that's where we might consider having something that's a little bit more specific to cyclists. Making more clear where the paths are. This is obviously not well refined, but something along the lines of, that it's more clear where the paths are with markings both with signage and whatever is appropriate for use of the physical space to make such indications. Maybe we don't actually paint the streets for the before mentioned reasons. Maybe it's putting in a curb that creates a protected bike lane, whatever it happens to be. But something that addresses that, I think it's deserving of its own letter.
It could also be incorporated into the standards for streets in a set of public works standards, where we take a look at a street and say, oh, okay. Arterials will have this configuration, local roads will have this configuration.
Yeah, just a letter that says that, though, we'll look at it specifically. I just think that the fact
Okay.
that we have, okay, here's my point. Sorry, Mayor, I forgot to raise my hand.
Counselor Johnson?
Thank you. My point is that I think it's pretty clear when we're talking about pedestrians having a place to walk, talk about a sidewalk. I think it's pretty clear when we're talking about cars going, there's a road there. But what does it mean for cyclists? And I just think that it needs to be specifically called out, that we mean that it's either protected or specifically called out as that this is a space for bicycles in some other way, and probably some level of signage. And if that means having in there as part of the letter a reference to a specific set of standards, that's fine. But yeah, I just think that something along those lines deserves its own letter.
Thank you. And everyone concurs with that?
Mhm.
That's the head.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Affirmative.
Also go on to ensure safety enhancements in the structure too.
Okay,
Additional
C. D.
Chair,
Counselor Benson?
on C, is that referring to like ADA requirements for?
The vulnerable populations?
Yeah, yeah,
I think D is
D is,
persons with disabilities.
I'm a slower reader than you guys, so.
So, excuse me.
Counselor Christensen,
I think Councilmember Cotton had her hand up.
Counselor Cotton.
So with C, the vulnerable populations specifically, is that referring to as they're spelled out in D?
No, they're different. I do have a definition.
Is, because I was wondering, would we be required, the city be required for this, the investment in the equitable modes of transportation?
And are you on D,
On C,
on C?
where it says, supporting access, connections, mobility for all and vulnerable populations through investment of equitable modes of transportation.
Yeah, I think the key word there is just support the access,
Okay,
support the access. And then once we support it, then we have to start making some investments, you know.
That'd be similar to Metro, right? They have different types of modes of transportation that they can help.
but this is something like those types of entities like Metro or SVT would
Can do
be
that,
the
right? Instead of-
providers. Okay.
Right. Counselor Christensen and then Counselor Washington.
So for C, when I had read it, I'd interpreted that to be like lower income folks. So ensuring that like maybe up at Panorama, there's the opportunity in the future for like a specific bus stop or additional like bus lanes, things like that, as well as the lower income housing here. I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but that's just how I had read it.
Okay.
Was making sure that there were modes of transportation that were being supported for those folks as well.
Okay.
Counselor Washington.
So specifically, Director, when we read here, vulnerable populations, are we talking about historically underserved populations?
Yes,
Should we maybe put that in there, strike out the vulnerable population and have it read historically underserved populations?
it's coming from PSRC and that's their terminology and they're going to be looking for it.
Okay.
Would it
That's
make,
what they're-
Appreciate that.
yeah, would it make sense to add and underserved? Sure. Historically underserved. Just so that we can call out clearly and include both.
Well,
Yeah,
So
Counselor
then
Washington.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no. I had, I was thinking the same when I first read this. And then I went down to D, I kind of juxtaposed and I thought vulnerable populations meant ADA. Elderly, and so, yeah, I think that we should, if it's vulnerable population, meaning historically underserved, we should probably spell that out. But if they're gonna be looking for vulnerable population, I think it's vulnerable
Yeah.
population and historically underserved.
Vulnerable is actually defined in PSRC as a definition in their glossary.
Say that again.
Vulnerable is defined as a definition in PSRC in their
As-
2050 plan.
As historically underserved.
I could read it to you. I don't have it memorized, but it's underserved.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
So you're asking to add vulnerable and historically underserved populations.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Counselor Benson.
Then can we strike the word all?
Why do we strike the word all?
Because the redundancy is driving me nuts. Are we trying to make equitable mobility for all? Or are we focusing specifically on small groups of people? If it's all, then it's covered by all. And if it's not, if we don't care about all, we only care about small portions of the population, then let's say that. But let's not pretend that it's both. If we want it to be both, which would be my preference, then let's keep all and scrap the rest of it, because all is by definition all inclusive.
Pointing to modes of operation, so PED, transit, and bicycle.
No, it says support access, connections and mobility for all. It says support access, connections and mobility for all and vulnerable populations. And now we're going to add and historically underserved populations. And they were all covered by the word all. They were all covered by that. You know, we're not leaving anybody out with all.
Well, let's hear some other comments. Councilmember Johnson and then Councilmember Christensen.
So when you use the word all, it does include everyone. However, the issue is that when you use the word all, sometimes without including those other terms, those other groups can end up, just by default, end up getting left behind. So while I agree with what you're saying completely, and it kind of bothered me because it's like all and this other group that kind of is exclusionary language. It makes it sound like this group isn't part of the all. So I was thinking that we could have the all, but change the and to including. So it'd be all including vulnerable populations and historically underserved. And I do agree with having the historically underserved because I find personally the word vulnerable to be a little bit problematic in this context. So I like saying we also maybe kind of mean this other term as well.
Councilor Christensen.
So covering the all and then.
Wait, Chair, can I just respond?
Well, he's responding and then Councilor Christensen, are you going to respond to the same note?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I understand and agree with your point as well, but was going to say the same thing basically as Councilmember Johnson, that since, you know, we are speaking that we do want to do it for everyone, but that we do have the segment of the population that has been underserved and left in the past, doing the specific call out might be good, and I did appreciate the language that was used there.
Thank you. Councilor Benson.
Then may I suggest that E becomes F and that D, or I'm sorry, excuse me, that D becomes E and E becomes F, and that C is just support access, connections, and mobility for all. And then D can focus on these groups that we want to make sure are emphasized to but make C all and make D one where you say we want to make sure that we don't miss serving these communities within our all. But I don't think I agree with most of what you said, that it's kind of exclusionary, except I would strike the kind of. Yeah.
Councilor Washington.
Yeah, I just have a quick point of clarity, Director. So that piece, mobility for all, is that just the mobility for all, or you mentioned that
Well,
it's meant to include modes?
Yeah,
So-
but PSRC is going to be extremely attentive to whether or not we define accessibility for pedestrians,
Mhm.
including disabled pedestrians, bicyclists and vehicles. And so that was a big focus, even so far as to start to set standards for non-motorized.
Just a quick follow-up. Okay, then if that's the case, maybe it reads mobility for all modes, including vulnerable populations and historically underserved.
Would that get by PRS?
What are your thoughts?
Depends what you guys want to do.
I mean, we talked about adding, so for all, including vulnerable and historically underserved through investment, equitable modes of transportation. So I guess, I think each one addresses different things. I mean, the next one, you're talking about disabilities, right? You're not talking about the historically underserved population, which could fall in that, but. Councilor Bitson?
I think the particularly odious wording of this for me is that it talks about all and. That's the issue. It talks about all and that makes the vulnerable populations and whatever other small groups that we include as separate from all, as not part of all. And I don't think we should ever put out a document that sends that message.
Right. We already talked about removing the word and.
Okay.
So we're gonna do that.
And do including.
Right.
Does that sound
So
good?
to say for all, including vulnerable and historically underserved populations. Counselor Christensen?
No, that's fine.
I would rather have the part that's including be a separate letter. If we want to put an emphasis on it, let's put it as a separate letter. Let's not create this sense that those groups are not part of all.
Counselor Johnson?
I'd be fine with that. I think that we specifically pulled out the needs of elderly children, persons with disabilities as being its own separate thing. So yeah, we could just take C and then we could copy the first few words for D and make it, instead of for all, we could say for vulnerable populations. So it'd almost be like a copy paste, but we just changed the all for vulnerable populations in D, and then D becomes E and then E becomes F.
So could you read C as you would like to have it
So it would
read?
just say, support access, connections, and mobility for all.
Okay,
And then C would be support access, connection, and mobility for all and vulnerable populations through investment in equitable modes of transportation.
And
Sorry, what,
So Counselor, well,
you
Benson,
understand
it's
it?
pronounced Benson.
no, I know. It's like looking at Washington because you didn't, Counselor Washington.
So I'm sorry, Councilmember Johnson, can you just reiterate that last sentence?
Yeah, and then the new D would be support access, connections, and, sorry, Chair. Should wait for you to.
Counselor
recognize me.
Johnson.
Thank you. Support access, connections, and mobility for vulnerable populations through investment of equitable modes of transportation.
Excellent.
And historically underserved.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you. That.
Counselor Benson?
I think I would prefer it if D did not start with the same wording, but instead had a different point that we want to ensure that we address the issues surrounding these groups when we're addressing mobility for all
Mhm.
and call out the groups there.
Mhm.
Do you see the difference? Because I think that if we just copy and paste it into the next letter, it's just the same problem in the next letter. So if we're going to make another point, let's make another point. And I think if it was something along the lines of ensure that we address yada, yada, yada.
Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, I make it much stronger because now we're ensuring that we've called out this group that has been historically underserved.
so how would it read?
So I
Ensure,
think,
Counselor Johnson?
I think something perhaps along the lines of ensure the needs of vulnerable populations and historically underserved populations are addressed through investments or through investments. It should be in equitable modes of transportation instead of investment of, but anyway, through investment in equitable modes of transportation.
Right. Any more comments on section 3? So I think we'll have to go back and listen to the audio and then make those changes.
I think we got there.
I think so too. But we only have about 2 minutes, so I think maybe we should go ahead and instead of move on to the next one, we would have to pick this up again, probably do the roundtable, as part of the roundtable again in next council meeting and finish this and then start on the Capitol.
I
Councilor
just want
Johnson?
to say that I know this is slow going and a bit of a slog, but personally, I'm getting a lot of value out of this process. There's a reason that things sometimes can feel like they move slow in government. And it's because we want to get things right as best as we can. So I'd encourage us to stay the course. We have till the end of the year, right? For October or something.
well, we have till this spring. Yeah,
Well, to get this part done.
yeah.
Yeah,
Get this
yes.
spring.
You know, state, so the element, transportation element, I mean, it's gone through, like, so it has had 2 open houses and it's been through like planning commission, actually Parks and Public Works Committee and Planning Commission, so 6 separate times through different levels. But it's also the most commented element of any of the elements so far. So, and some of the sticklers are, having bike paths and connections, and then metro or public transit and things like that. So there's a lot of people who put a lot of input on this. So I'm glad we're spending time on it.
Yeah,
With
it's
that-
one of the three big ones for sure. Land use, housing and transportation.
Right. So with that, I think we need to adjourn and get ready for our council meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard motion by Councilor Watton and second by Councilor Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, we are adjourned at 6:55.
Thank you.
The initial image was like, oh, that's great. And then it happened, it's like, you know. and then
Thanks.
it was like real happy. I was like that.
Sorry.
Was it challenging?
Ringing my
Yeah.
ears. Good evening. We just completed a roundtable ending at 6:55, and now we're going to resume with the regular meeting. So it is now 7 PM. And we let the record show that all councilors present except for Councilmember Holloway, who has been excused. And now we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Christensen, would you please lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now move to our first item, regular business, is to approve the agenda. Council, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Watton, second by Councilor Washington. Is there any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Right, the agenda is approved. Next, we move on to public comment. At this time, we'll provide time for residents to comment on items not on the agenda. First, a few ground rules. Snoqualmie residents who are not present have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient, orderly manner. Therefore, comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please wait to be recognized and state your name and city of residence for the record. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. And public comments during this portion of the meeting shall be limited to topics concerning current, future, or requested city projects, actions, programs, plans, and regulations. Comments not pertaining to these subject matters are not germane and may result in your comments being suspended. So with that, is there anyone in the council chambers or online that would like to have public comment? All right, we're not seeing anyone online nor in the council chambers that are wishing to do public comment. So at this point, our public comment is now closed and we move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains approval of the city council meeting minutes dated February 26, 2024, approval of the claims approval report dated March 11th, 2024, AB 24-028, residential sewer connection, AB 24-036, resolution selecting citywide facility solutions of Washington LLC for a 12-month custodial contract with option to renew. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Watton, second by Councilor Christensen. Is there any public comment regarding this item? All right, we are not seeing anyone raise their hands for public comment. Councilor, is there any discussion regarding any of the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? The consent agenda is approved. Next, we move on to the ordinance. Tonight's ordinance is AB 24-025, proposed amendment to the SMC Title 15 Building and Construction, Chapter 15.04A and 15.04B. This is the second reading of ordinance 1289. Councilmember Washington, would you please read the introduction and motion?
Yes. Introduction. The proposed ordinance amends Snoqualmie Municipal Code, chapters 15.04A and 15.04B, and adopts by reference the 2021 International and Uniform Codes as adopted and amended by the State Building Code Council. Scroll down here. Proposed action. I make a motion to adopt ordinance 1289, amending Snoqualmie Municipal Code, Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.04 A and 15.04 B.
Is there a second?
Second.
So it's moved by Counselor Washington, second by Counselor Christensen. And is there any public comment regarding this item? No one's joined us. Okay. No, there's no one in the chambers or online. They're wishing to do public comment. So we have our Community Development Director, Emily Artecha, and John Cooper, our building official, are here to answer any questions. I understand there might be a minor change.
Evening, Mayor Ross and council. I haven't been to a council meeting and introduce myself. I'm John Cooper, the building official, fire marshal for the city. I was notified late this afternoon that the state of Washington this past Friday, March 8th, suspended and did not adopt the 21 wild urban fire code. They have to they're requiring the Department of Natural Resources to redo their maps of the fire hazards, so that way they are more accurate, so jurisdictions would be able to apply the code. It affects 3 code sections. The city attorney has the 3 code sections where the wild urban code is referenced. And I was hoping that we would be able to strike out those 3 code sections, adopting the wild urban code, and you folks would be able to vote on it tonight. Any questions?
Counselor Johnson?
Does that require a motion, or has that already been done by staff and we're assuming that we're going to do that?
City Attorney?
The version of the code that's in your packet, I believe, has there's actually just 2 code provisions that would need to be struck. They're still in your packet because this just came down a couple days ago from the State Building Code Council and Legislature. So basically you could adopt what's in your packet now minus 1504A.080, which is just the adoption of the Wild and Urban Interface Code, and 1504B.050, and it's actually subsection L, but the code has 2 subsection J, so it's the second subsection J, which is actually should be subsection L, but that's the reference in 1504B to the Wild and Urban Interface Code. So it would just be adopting this as presented minus those 2 changes because they put that on hold at state level.
So moved.
Second.
That's been moved by Counselor Johnson and second by Counselor Watton to adopt the building code minus the 2 sections that our city attorney Linehan just mentioned. First of all, is there any public comment regarding this item? Seeing none. Counselor Christensen.
We'd also need to amend the ordinance as well to make those changes, correct? In the first paragraph,
You would be, let's see what the ordinance says.
it goes down at section 5, portions of the International Wildlife Urban Interface Code would also need to be stricken.
Yes,
And then
good,
renumbered.
yes, good catch. We can make those Scrivener's changes when we sign the official version of the ordinance. Thank you for pointing that out.
Counselor Benson.
I had a question for Mr. Cooper. You've looked over these updates in the building code that they've handed down, I'm sure. Is there anything in it where you thought, oh my gosh, it's about time? They should have done this a long time ago, or anything in it that just seems stupid and ridiculous to you as somebody who deals with the building of buildings a lot?
There's nothing that's glaring under this code adoption cycle. They've got more restrictive in some areas. Do I agree with them? Some of them I don't, but I'm here to enforce them, which I will.
Did any of the things that were added to them make buildings cheaper?
No. No. The code that really hurts the cost of a home is the adopted 2021 Washington State Energy Code. It's probably going to add $10,000 to $15,000 to the construction cost.
And how does it do that?
By upgrading the insulation R values. They're getting more restrictive. They're trying to make the houses more tight, so they're more energy efficient. I've actually had one builder, Murray Franklin, who had 13 lots to build, that they actually were proactive. And there is a sealant that they spray on the exterior of the walls on the inside, which basically seals all the air leakage gaps. And that's a new thing in the energy code also, but Murray Franklin this past year took it upon themselves to enforce that with their company to give their homeowners a better product that's more energy efficient.
And do you have any idea of how long the average homeowner would need to own that home in order to make that money back in saved energy?
In saved energy, it would probably be like the solar panels where it will take up to 10 years to get your money back.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Cooper? Seeing none. So all is in favor of the motion with the amended portion of 15.04A,
One other question.
15.04B. Counselor Benson? You have one
Do we
more
have any
question?
choice on this? I mean, this is something that I mean, let's be clear. Is this one of those things that we have to pass this, right? We don't really have a choice in the matter.
Well, with the state, the adoption of the code, the jurisdictions have the right not to adopt the code until the state approves it. So with the maps being outdated, inaccurate, it would restrict a lot of the areas, like the area of the wildfire area for Snoqualmie Ridge is like a half mile, 1 mile from any residential units, but they're worried because Snoqualmie Ridge is on a hill. If a fire catches down below that with the winds, it'll go up over the top of the hill and then affect the homes. The one item that I haven't researched yet, but have an email from another jurisdiction that makes a few statements that at this point I'm going to say is inaccurate until I can read the bill that suspends the urban wild code.
What would the effect on builders be if we didn't adopt this tonight?
Well, right now it would not affect the builders because already, like, for instance, there's 3 different classes of roofing materials. There's A, B, and C. And C is the most restrictive when it comes to flame spread and is the best. And we are already getting a type C roofing material on the homes as they're being built or as they're being getting a permit for the re-roof. So we are actually getting the best roofing material as far as fire rating already, which is one of the items in the wild urban code that is required based on fire separation distance. So say a home is right on the edge of a depicted area that is of great concern. So you would not be able to build 50 feet closer to it. And then depending on further away from that area, the code will require either a type A, a type B, or a type C roofing material to stop a house from catching fire from a wildfire in the urban area.
So that it can't spread to the rest of the neighborhood.
Correct.
From house to house to house.
Yes, and then also that code also has clearing limits, requirements for wood debris, shrubbery items like that, where you clear it out, so that way you have a good fire barrier between your home and the area in question.
So
Counselor Benson, actually, that's, Counselor Johnson, you have something to that effect as well?
I could do another follow-up and then come back to me.
Okay, Counselor Benson?
I,
follow-up?
all I was trying to figure out is this gonna, are we gonna have any kind of negative effect on builders if we pass this tonight, rather than passing it later after the state figures out what they're gonna pass?
Well, if council passes that code book this evening, the code at this time is inaccurate because of the mapping that is in there. I would highly suggest that we wait until the Department of Natural Resources revise their mapping area, which will be more accurate. Then we can apply the code to new construction.
And there's nothing that's gonna, I'm sorry, okay,
That
thank
is-
you. I think.
Let's
you
hear
answered
from our
it.
city
Yeah,
attorney,
the
Lenahan.
city's not gonna get in trouble by not adopting it.
Okay,
So
Good turn.
city is safe.
thank you.
Attorney Lenahan?
So Mr. Cooper, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only mapping that's changed, that would change is the mapping that relates to the urban wildland interface code, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we would still need to adopt the rest of the updated code, international and uniform codes. Though.
Correct.
Correct. So it's just the urban wildland interface that we would not be adopting tonight.
Correct.
Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, that's effectively what I was gonna just clarify was, we were just talking about if we voted down my amendment to take those things out, then we'd be adding extra code that we're gonna have to change in the future anyway. So essentially, for the baby dinosaur, it would be to have those things taken out.
Or leave them in?
Or if you vote no, it would be to leave them in.
Well, we already amended it.
Well, we didn't vote on that. We haven't taken them out yet. We're technically still in the baby dinosaur.
Are there two dinosaurs, or wasn't the original motion to adopt without those?
What's written up there was the original motion.
Sorry, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we added the motion.
The
to
motion
remove
was to strike for the
those,
wildlands.
Right. And I
So we
think,
need to vote on the motion to strike the wildland
Right.
and then go back to whether we're going to implement the remaining portions of the code.
Right.
And make change to the
Right.
words, which will follow with the scrivener's error.
but instead of having to do this again,
Well,
You just didn't do that.
Supposed to do it twice. We have a motion on
no,
the
I agree on the voting. Yeah, absolutely. But instead of coming back and another
Right.
month after the maps are, I mean, this really be easier to just adopt it with remove this tonight. Counselor Benson?
Just to clarify, what I was wondering was if there was a problem with the paperwork from the state, and we could put this off, and it would give our builders in this area some leeway to work for a month or several months, then I would see that as a good reason to wait for the state to get their paperwork in order. And I still can't tell what the answer is. It sounds like that we can fix the state's paperwork and pass it ourselves tonight. What I'm just wondering is if that's the best thing to do for the people of Snoqualmie. That's what I was wondering.
According to the state of Washington, they say it will take a minimum of 1.5 years or more to update the mapping, and the state did not put a time period of when it had to be completed. So we could be here 3 years from now and that code's not even adopted then.
But all the other code needs to be adopted.
Yeah.
It's important we adopt all the other code, right?
Yes.
City Attorney, okay, Counselor Johnson.
Yeah, so a vote in favor of the amendment would be to strike those things we do not need to implement until some later date when the state gets what they need in order to implement it at their level. But then that would leave behind all the things we have to do regardless. So that has to do with natural gas hookups and whatever else that doesn't have anything to do with wildfires, well, at least tangentially.
Counselor Christensen, did you have?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a similar point to Councilmember Johnson that under the RCWs, we have to implement the other portions of the code. Like, we don't have discretion there. So we should, At least my opinion is we should approve what we can approve now. Wait for the state to fix up the new maps or get the new information and then do that as a second portion later. But at least right now, we are required under the RCWs to implement the additional code provisions. So we should move forward with that.
Counselor Benson?
But you get what I was, if houses are gonna be $10,000 to $15,000 more under this new code, and if there was some way for us to wait for 1.5 to 3 years while they get their stuff together before we adopted it, that would be a good thing for folks around here to not have to spend an extra 15 grand a house to build a house.
I understand the point. It's just then you're gonna be paying for the additional costs to heat and do all of that on the back end over the life of the home, right? So it kind of balances out whether you want to have that being charged at the front end or miss out and be paying it over the life of the home.
Fair enough.
Johnson?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so we need to vote on the amendment of striking 15.04A 080 and B 050 and these
050,
subsections.
Yes,
Okay.
subsection F. Yes.
So in favor of striking those out, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, so that motion passes. Now we're back to the original.
Oh, do we get to vote nay?
Well, oh, any vote nay?
Nay.
So we have one, Counselor Vince voted against, and we have 5 votes for. Okay, moving on to the original motion to adopt ordinance 1289, amending SMC Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.04A and 15.04B, and with updates to the ordinance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
We have 5 yes and 1 nay by Counselor Benson. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So any movement to committee reports? Is there a report for Public Safety Committee?
There is, Your Mayor, Your Honor. We had a presentation by our public, or actually by our police officer, James Aguirre, and mental health professional, Stephanie Butler, on the peer support program. And the committee is also undertaking a list of priorities, and those will be coming back to the committee that will help guide our discussion through the course of the year for the next couple of years. One other item of note and also public safety, and that is care enclosures continuing to move forward in King County. Originally, the county executive set 2025 as the date to close the juvenile detention center. That is being delayed. There's a couple issues there that the public should be aware of. One is state law because we have a population of over, I believe, 50,000. We do have to have a juvenile detention center. This one was opened in 2020. Cost of $242 million. It was passed by the voters in 2012. And care enclosure is about closing the facility and moving those residents into residential areas throughout the. It's a complicated system, but one that we need to be concerned with. So those are the 2 items there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is community development. We have AB 24-037 draft housing element. So Councilor Washington, would you please read the introduction and motion?
So the introduction, the draft housing element was the second of 6 comprehensive plan elements to be reviewed by the city council as part of the comprehensive plan periodic review update 2044. The council has expressed a desire to acknowledge the draft work completed to date as part of an ongoing review process. Down here. So proposed action, I move to accept Council Roundtable edits on the draft housing element goal and policies shown in Exhibit 1 as part of an ongoing review of the City Comprehensive Plan Periodic Review Update 2044, subject to integration and harmonization with the other comprehensive plan elements under review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Washington, second by Councilmember Johnson for the AB 24-037 draft housing element. So is there anyone public that would like to public comment on this, either online or in the chambers? Don't see anyone raise their hands. Council, any discussion? So last time, this is the element that we reviewed in the last special workshop, about 2 weeks ago. And we've, in the packet, you'll see the red lines, the edits that you recommended. So those have been implemented into the element. And had a chance to review it, or do you want to any discussion regarding it? We do have our Community Development Director Artecha here, so if you have any questions. Any questions? Otherwise, move to a vote.
Looks good.
Great. Great. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Excellent. So our second element of the comprehensive plan, we just passed, so thank you. Is there any further comments from Community Development Committee?
Not at this time.
Great. And then what about comments from Parks and Public Works Committee?
Not to.
How about Finance Administration Committee? He is not here, Jimmy. Councilor Johnson?
No report.
Right. So the next item on our agenda is council retreat agenda. I believe this was reviewed in F&A, and we do have a facilitator lined up for the council retreat, which is Andrew Ballard.
What's your name?
Andrew Ballard, and this is going to be on April 6th on a Saturday. And he was going to have a conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, so I'm not sure if that happened, but I think one thing he likes to do is actually put time segments to each of the discussions so we can get through the whole day. So. Anyone have any questions regarding the agenda?
Open up.
Councilor Washington.
I think it will be available. Will there be a link available for a webinar? So like a Zoom link? I'm planning on being there, but I'm just asking for other council members.
Well, hopefully everyone's in attendance, and I don't know that we're required to do that. It is open to the public where people can come in.
Okay.
So we'll have to decide as council if you want to have a Zoom link or not. Councilor Johnson?
Since I'm going to be flying out of California the next day to Paris, I'm going to be in California, so I'll have to attend remotely.
Well, then that answers it.
Okay, so we'll have a Zoom link. Okay.
Are we having it at the fire station? Okay, and we are having, I believe, at the fire station, so that's more amenable to being able to sit in a group and not have to pass around the microphone because they actually have the mics.
Okay.
Good AV setup over there, so.
I'm
We'll have it
planning on being there in person.
Excellent. Sounds good. Right. Any other comments or?
Here's one.
Councilor Watton?
Councilmember Benson is asking me about the lunch options.
Let's get the important stuff.
It's box lunch.
Do we know what our lunch options are?
Not yet. Do you have any special requests?
PB&J.
B and J, okay.
Or any with the words Wellington.
I don't think.
Need two-tailed lobster.
There you go. And $5 at Safeway, so. Yes. Consider it done.
Thermidor. Thermidor is fine too.
All right. Okay. If there's any more discussion, I anticipate probably F&A again next time. Yeah. Okay, we move on then to open house discussion. So this was also brought up during F&A. Do you want to talk about, we discussed at F&A?
Sure, I can try to wing it. So we spoke about both the council retreat agenda and then a potential open house. Councilmember Holloway had kind of thrown out some possible dates for it and had talked about potentially getting a moderator to come and help with that as well. I don't know where the discussions landed after F&A. I don't know whether you had any communications with them after that, so I don't have anything beyond that. But I think that the hope is just to get additional feedback from folks and I think eventually to talk about what the format would look like.
Right. Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I think that the desire was to have it sooner rather than later, that we had a date set for the end of the month, but it looks like the planning for that is just probably not going to hit that date. So we talked about maybe having to give that date a miss. Given that Councilmember Holloway is kind of spearheading that effort, has some other matters. Yeah, it's probably gonna have to shift backwards a little bit. But what the current vision is that the council would be kind of positioned in a dais-like fashion, and members of the public could come up and ask us questions or give public comments, and that would be moderated by a moderator who would not be one of us, or the mayor would be a more neutral party between the two. We didn't decide that is what we were going to do, but that was the vision where we last left it. So more to come.
Councilor Washington?
So at this point, we're probably going to consider it after the council retreat.
I think that's a safe bet.
Okay.
Any other comments? Councilor Johnson?
Also, we would like to have it in a neutral location rather than here. So maybe one of the school district facilities, or again at the fire station, or somewhere else.
Okay. Right. Any other comments? All right. No, Councilor Watton?
So I'm just either kind of curious or not clear, what outcome are we hoping from the open house?
Councilor Johnson?
I think one of the main things is that it gives the chance for the public to feel like they're being heard by their council. And it is in a different format from how we've done some things in the past, where we had sort of a more general open house where it's more city staff focused. And it's less of an add-on to another activity. People are like, well, I came here for red, white, and boom. I didn't come here to talk to my council members. And we all just kind of stood around and no one talked to us. So it's a more dedicated thing where it's where perhaps you get a little bit more public engagement. And again, the outcome would be for the public to not only feel heard, but to be heard.
Councilor Watton or Washington?
We kind of look alike. So are we thinking it's going to be a general open house, or will they be kind of like pre-planned topics? Are we at this point, we're just thinking a general open house that anything goes?
Councilor Johnson?
So we don't have the specifics nailed down there yet. However, again, where we left the discussion was that we would be in this kind of a setting, but that people could come up and ask us anything. I don't remember where it was. I want to say it was at Timber Ridge, but anyway, I remember the council a number of years ago did something similar back around like 2019 or so, where there were maybe 50 people or so that had come, and they just came up to the microphone and either ask a question or said their piece about, it was fairly wide open. In terms of topics. And there was a facilitator that took some notes on one of those flip kind of things. when I went to that, I felt heard.
Any other comments? Okay. Well, you have, okay, Councilor Watton.
So given that format, would it be that somebody speaks and the council responds? Or somebody speaks and it's noted and then we move on to the next person? Is it back and forth? Oh, I'm kind of curious about that.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I think it could go technically either way. If someone wanted to make a comment and none of us felt like saying anything about it, I think that's fine. But also we could probably anticipate some of the big hitting topics, like the community center expansion, 18 Snoqualmie Parkway. There are a few other things that we could probably anticipate would come up. So one of the things that Councilmember Holloway is working on is what some of those topics might be in a standard set of talking points that we could consider. That doesn't mean you have to stay on script, of course. It's not like that. But that we could have some general consensus things that we would more or less agree on. So we don't feel like something's coming completely out of left field.
Councilor Washington.
Someone could ask anything, I suppose.
Councilor Washington.
So it sounds, Councilmember Johnson, sounds like a town hall format. Absolutely, yeah. I'm in support of this. I just, in my neighborhood, I know a couple of my neighbors have come over and, on Saturday mornings and kind of, definitely have questions, and some of which I can't answer because I don't have some of the other expertise that we have here on the council. So I think it's a great idea.
You could ask if people are going to attend that they could submit questions up front as well. We could answer questions while they're here, but also if they submit questions up front that we can research and be able to respond to them while they're here. Councilor Johnson.
One way that our legislators, Bill Ramos, Lisa Cowan, and Mark Muller have done in the past is you have an opportunity for people to submit questions ahead of time, but also while they're there, they've got paper and pencils and they could write out a question and give them to the facilitator so that they could be at least somewhat moderated to a degree, so you don't get some of the kinds of things that we saw a few weeks ago. Not that that's likely, but
right.
In that sense.
Okay. Councilor Benson.
I'd be in favor of, a more open, ask whatever you want to ask kind of thing. I'm not particularly worried that we're not going to be able to answer questions. But if we can't, then we can always say that, but yeah, making it as wide open to people to ask whatever they ask, I think is a great idea. I think it's how you're going to get people to participate.
Councilor Washington.
I agree with Council Member Benson. If we don't have the answer, we'll find the answer and follow up with them.
Yeah.
Councilor Johnson.
Rule of thumb is if you don't know, say so.
Yeah.
Like it.
Absolutely. Great. So I think during F&A, then we'll come up with some more dates. Sounds good. Great. Right, moving on. Just have a quick mirrors update. I know we have still late, long evening ahead of us. So first of all, congratulations to the Mount Si boys basketball for their 4A champions. And I actually attended the game last Saturday. It was very, very exciting. As well as the pep rally this past week. I haven't been to one for a long time, so that was a lot of fun. But during the pep rally, it wasn't just about the boys basketball. It was also about all these other groups that are heading to state, and then also recognize all the people that have been to state and their accomplishments. So it's really, it's amazing just the quality of programs that our high school has. So it's very impressive. So it was a lot of fun. We are nearing completion of the all-inclusive playground at Centennial Fields, probably next couple of weeks. And there will be some type of like a, major opening of it, either late April, early May, but kids will be able to use it in advance. Well, before that, Councilor Cotton.
Will the kiddos be able to use it for the egg hunt? The
Yes.
Is it the- I see a little.
Maybe, I've seen a maybe and I'm seeing a definite yes, so.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Very
So
exciting.
say if it was just sitting there glaring at them, and they couldn't use it, that would be.
Right.
We won't do that. If it's safe, it'll be open.
Okay.
And so would you have the egg events coming up? So we have teen egg hunt on the 29th, and then the youth egg hunt on the 30th, so of this month. And then also be sure that you save the date for Snoqualmie Valley Government Association meeting. And we are hosting it here in Snoqualmie. And that is March 27th, starting at 6:30, and we'll let you know where it is. That's where all the council members and mayors throughout the valley will be here. Hopefully so. So that's my update. Next we have is commission and committee liaison reports. Do we have any reports this evening? Councilor Watton?
I've got two. First of all, on affordable housing, I attended last week the King County Affordable Housing Committee to reiterate our position on the projected number of houses for the 2044. They did acknowledge that they had received the notification from the council and taking it in consideration. Along with that, we have Chris Lovings from the Department of Commerce. He handles King County at our housing chat last week. And we're going to continue that conversation with Department of Commerce to find other avenues forward to get affordable housing sooner to the valley. That's an ongoing discussion. So if you're interested, it's the first Wednesday every month, 12 to 1, at my office in North Bend. And the second thing, and that's an update on the Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance. The Snoqualmie tribe has approved it. We now have all 5 governments on board. We are working quickly with Seattle Metro Chamber of Commerce, our ADO for King County, to fund for a grant writer. And we are going to be applying by April 1st for a USDA RISE grant that helps to support, it will support agriculture throughout the entire valley, everything from farm to table. And we're looking at engaging a farmer's market potentially in downtown Snoqualmie to add to the other farmers markets across the valley. And those would all come through the Snow Valley Innovation Center. And so more to come on that. It's pretty darn exciting. So thank you for your support on that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or Councilor Cotton?
Yes, I have been attending some of the liaison meetings. The SEA Department of Health, Public Health briefing was last week with Dr. Khan, and they have dashboards up on their website for the respiratory disease, the opioid OD. It's their data repository. Of course, climate impact on health, King County leading the nation, and the Public Health Insider Health. I have all those websites. If anyone's interested, I can send the minutes, my notes from that have that on there as well. There is also budget issues within public health, $50 million deficit, which they're working on to decrease costs. 23 million still needs cutting to balance it. So they're looking for some potential cutting of services in some areas. They still plan to provide clinical care. One thing that is happening, they announced that CDC is decreasing the COVID isolation guidelines, which you've all probably seen in the news. But they're recommending protection for all 3 viruses, COVID, RSV, and flu. And then the COVID vaccine federal funds are going away at the end of this month. So they're closing down the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital drive-through vaccine clinic and also the Kent Clinic. So if you know anybody that needs to get their boosters, go get them now before the end of the month. Arts Commission, we're earnestly just had a presentation this evening for from the Washington Arts as far as one of their representatives about the arts district or the creative district guidelines. And so got a lot of specifics for that. So it was really informative. So definitely moving forward. Met with Downtown and Ridge Merchants and they're having a joint meeting Wednesday of this week. And so they're really excited. The merchants are all very excited about the creative district possibilities. So that's happening. Snoqualmie Days Committee, we've been meeting the last few months and just moving forward with it, those things that are happening. And where else did I go? Medic One EMS Advisory Task Force. I'm on the BLS, Basic Life Support Subcommittee, and which is our tier of or level of response here within the city. So we'll be working on that and finding out about our funding and things like that.
Great. Thank you. Any other updates? Okay. Seeing none, we'll turn to our city administrator, Chambliss. You want to give us a summary of department reports?
Yes, I encourage you all to look at the department reports. A lot of work goes into them, and I'm not going to read them to you. Gail and Dana have been knocking it out of the park in the communications department. Not only have they supported all the open houses regarding the community center expansion, they're preparing for the mayor's Say a City address. They're supporting the park recreation open space plan. They've run 2 or 3 chat with the chiefs lately, so they are killing it. Community development has had a busy month of inspections with 47, no new permits issued. Lots of work on the general plan in there, but I wanted to call out that Nicole has the event schedule made up for the year. So she's going to be pushing that out in social media, etc. She also has taken the extra step of buying some advertising space in some children's magazines that go out to the greater Seattle area to advertise the new inclusive playground. So we believe that there's going to be a much wider reach for that feature than just our local valley. And the fire department had 131 incidents this last month, the majority of them being EMS rescue. And then we go down to HR and finance. They are working diligently on the Munis project. And currently they're going through and making sure that the information that was put in there is the correct information before we get too far down the road and there's an issue. Another major lift is we're looking at updating the HR manual, personnel rules and regulations that should be coming to council probably summertime for review and adoption. And that will be a comprehensive update to bring it in line with current codes. And Parks and Public Works, they did not have much snow this month, but they are getting ready for sports. It's sports season. It's here. So it's field work. Do you want to call out that the park staff, several of them are certified pool operators now, so we're good to go on the splash pad when it gets here. So there will be no delay in not having certifications, etc. Patrick's working with the health department to get that permit issued so we can go ahead and start work up there at the community center. And finally, we have the police department where total calls in Snoqualmie have gone down from last month by about 56 calls. So.
Excellent. Anything else?
Nope,
All right.
that's it.
All right. So this brings us to, we have a closed session and a couple executive sessions. So I will read in these sessions and who will be here, needs to remain here. And then no action is anticipated following conclusion of the sessions. So we will adjourn directly from the closed or executive session and not return to open session. So the city clerk will be informed of concluding time for the closed session, which will be reflected in the meeting minutes. So first, we will talk about closed session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1404B for the planning or adoption of a strategy or position to be taken during the course of any collective bargaining proceedings or reviewing the proposals made in the negotiation or proceedings lasting approximately how many minutes?
30.
30 minutes. Those attending closed session will include our interim city attorney, David Linehan, counsel Sophia Maybe, city administrator, Mike Chambliss, finance director, Drew Bittet, chief Lynch, HR manager, Kim Johnson, budget manager, Jana Walker, and budget analyst, Jennifer Hughes. And then we will move on to 3 executive sessions pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101AI to discuss the legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions or to discuss legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member of acting in is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequences to the agency lasting approximately, how many minutes? Yeah.
45.
45 minutes, so that it means 75 minutes. And the first session will include the same people that I called out that I just listed. And then the second and third executive session will include city attorney David Linehan, city administrator Mike Chambliss, chief Lynch, and HR manager Kim Johnson. And Sophia Maybe. And so we were going to have maybe a 5-minute break. Okay, give me 80 minutes. What's 80 minutes on top? And we need Joe Johnson, who is our math professor, will tell us what time 80 minutes from now is. 9:50 plus.
He can't do that kind of math. Nobody can.
Let's say 9:15.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Council, I need you to keep your laptops on and open that you were emailed in a link for the closed session. Video will be through theirs, audio will be through the room.
Okay,
So
so
we're gonna be in here.
we are going to be
I see.
staying here. And so we will exit out of this regular meeting and we're done with that. We're not coming back to that as I already read it in, that there will be no action anticipated. And then we'll join into our executive session link. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, this meeting is closed.